I was very excited. I thought the demo sounded great. Went into the office, the ATV office the next day, and I was informed that they hated the demo so much that they had erased it. Oh. Which is a statement in itself, because as you know, Terry, if a publisher doesn't like a song, they don't usually erase the master.
All right, ladies and gents, gather round. We got value going once, truth going twice, sold for a song. That's right, folks. Rights signed away, data given away, pennies on the play. Publishing, gone. Credit, missing. Ownership, kiss it goodbye. 50 pages of catch-22s, no dice. You can't eat a like, a follow, or a view. Sold for a song. But wait now, hold your bids, hold your breath. Here comes the truth louder than the bass lines. Time to take it back. Where the artists rise, the system shakes, and the silence finally breaks.
Welcome to Sold for a Song, the transformative podcast that dissects the music industry's long-standing practice of undervaluing its most essential contributors. Yes, we're talking songwriters and artists. In each episode, we'll delve into the journey of recognizing and elevating the true worth and value of music creators, discover how the industry has exploited creators, and learn actionable strategies to revolutionize this trend and take control of your career. All right, before we dive in, if you believe in empowering artists and redefining what it means to thrive creatively, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with someone who truly needs it. That one click helps more than you know. And if you want to go deeper, join me at terrencesawchuk.com to be a part of the community and follow all of my endeavors for exclusive content and updates. Welcome to episode 3, titled Fair Trade Music. Our guest today is legendary hit songwriter and my good friend, Eddie Schwartz. He has written songs for Joe Cocker, Paul Carrack, the Doobie Brothers, Donna Summer, Rascal Flatts, Carly Simon, and Peter Frampton, among many others. Eddie is best known for writing 100% of Hit Me With Your Best Shot for Pat Benatar. Eddie is one of the most active songwriters fighting for our rights around the world. He is also a recipient of the Order of Canada for his outstanding achievement and dedication to the nation. Today, we will be discussing Eddie's latest initiative, Fair Trade Music. How are you today, Mr. Schwartz?
I'm very well, Mr. Sawchuk. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I'd like you to sort of give us a backstory on how you got started in the business.
Did I get started in the business? I can't remember that part. Ancient history. Well, I was a struggling songwriter artist in Toronto, Canada, the Great White North. Really couldn't get anybody to listen to my songs. Not unusual for a songwriter and an artist. It's kind of business as usual. I finally got the bright idea to join a band that had a record deal. And so I had some, friends who were musicians, and I sort of reached out to a few. And one of them came back to me, a guy named Marvin Dolgay, who was the musical director for quite a well-known Canadian artist at the time. His name was Charity Brown. And Charity, they hired me. They were looking for original material for Charity to sing, and I had a lot of songs that I had written. So they invited me to join the band as rhythm guitar player. And I did. I did it not because I particularly liked what Charity was doing, with all due respect to Charity, and it was, fairly well-paying gig in those days. But I did it because I knew I needed a game plan, and I think that's very important, for anybody trying to get into the music business, is to try to figure out some kind of plan to get in there. So I figured, well, if she does my material, she's got a record deal with A&M Records. The record label will hear my material, which they wouldn't listen to. I tried to get my foot in the door there, and they wouldn't, even return my phone calls. So this gave me an opportunity to get my music heard by a major international label at the time. We're going back to the mid-'70s. And sure enough, after being in the band for about a year, I got a phone call from the president, whose name was Jerry LaCourcier, who informed me that they decided to drop Charity Brown because they want to sign a new artist. And I said, and who is that new artist? And they said, you. Ah. So the plan worked. They liked the songs, and Charity, didn't show up to a gig here and there, and I got to sing, and I guess basically they heard me sing, they heard the songs. So that was really the thing that got my career going. And as you know, Terry, once one label makes an offer to an artist or a publisher to a songwriter, the floodgates tend to open, and now all of a sudden you're getting offers from other companies. So I ended up not going with A&M after all that. I got an offer from a publishing company called ATV, which was based in England and had a little band called the Beatles.
Rings a bell.
Yeah. So I went, okay, I want to be on the label the Beatles are on.
So that's literally the ATV in Sony ATV was the Beatles catalog. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So ATV was really interested, but they wanted to hear a few more songs. I had some demos of some of the songs I was doing with Charity Brown, some with her singing, some with me singing, but they wanted to hear some more. So I had this idea that I'd come up with when I was briefly in therapy. I was really depressed about the fact that nobody gave a shit about my music. And
been there.
and the fact that my mother was calling me 7 times a day saying you should go to law school. And I was, didn't want to go to law school. So got kind of depressed. And a friend said that they were in therapy with this kind of wild experimental therapy called bioenergetics. And I went to a therapy or two, a couple of sessions, and you're supposed to punch pillows and get all your hostility outed, whoever had, pissed you off in the last few days. So, you punch pillows and I won't mention any names, but you would say, you asshole, and you'd punch the pillow and you'd kind of get your hostility out. And actually it was pretty good. It was kind of fun to do. Anyway, after one of the sessions, I walked outside in Toronto. I'll never forget this. And they had a kind of a big porch. And I was standing there kind of getting ready to get on the subway to go home. And this title, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, came to me. So
brilliant.
Yes. So I have not told the therapist this. They have not got 50% of the song.
It wasn't a co-write.
That's right. It wasn't a co-write. I did it out on the porch afterwards, wherever you are, John. John, the therapist. It took me a long time to write that idea. It took me a long time because the lyrics had to be just right. And I ended up having a folk tune that I'd written years before called "Lead Me to Your Love Light." And that music, when I started playing it on an electric guitar as opposed to an acoustic guitar, it started morphing into and developing into the song that Hit Me With Your Best Shot would become the kind of more, obviously kind of pared down rock song that it became. And so eventually I demoed it and in Toronto, just did a very, very rough demo at a studio in Leaside in the middle of the night after a Charity Brown gig. And put that on with a few other new songs and sent it down to L.A. The headquarters of ATV in North America were in L.A.
Okay.
So I sent it down there, and lo and behold, I got a deal offer, and I signed it. And within a few days or weeks, I can't remember exactly, but very, very soon after signing that, I was on a plane to Los Angeles, which was, of course, very, very exciting for
absolutely
a kid from Toronto who I've been kicking around Ontario and Canada playing in bars and high schools and that kind of thing, coffee houses. So I walked into ATV in LA. I was so green that I actually thought the limo driver worked for the company, and I gave him a cassette tape. And he gave me, who picked me up at the airport, ATV.
He gave you his.
No, he gave me a script.
A script.
He thought I was
it was going to be one of the two.
Yeah, he thought I was a somebody, and I thought he was a somebody. So there you go. So I walked into ATV and I sat down with the vice president and the creative head. I can't remember his exact title. And they said, we really loved all of the songs you submitted except one, the very last song. And my heart sunk because the last song on the tape was Hit Me With Your Best Shot. And they said, we just think that song's beneath you. We really, the other songs are so good. But like, what happened? What happened when you wrote that one? And I said, oh my God, I think that's my best song. So they said, look, we think you're really talented. We want to support you. Try to write more songs like Dan Hill. So, and Hit Me With Your Best Shot definitely didn't sound much like Sometimes When We Touch, which was a big hit around that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Late 70s. So I was very depressed, for a change. And my therapist was back in Toronto when I was in LA. So I literally begged them, and it took weeks. We demoed the other songs with some very good musicians and some very good studios in LA. And I just begged and begged and pleaded and begged and pleaded some more. And finally, they just were so sick of me. And I had been in LA now for weeks. I was supposed to be there for a week or two. I'd been there for I don't know how many weeks, maybe 6 weeks at this point, begging. I just refused to leave until they let me do a really good demo of Hit Me. So finally they relented, and we went into a studio with a good band, some of Elton John's musicians, who one of the guys in the band was an old friend from Toronto. I was very excited. I thought the demo sounded great. Went into the office, the ATV office the next day, and I was informed that they hated the demo so much that they had erased it. Oh. Which is a statement in itself, because as you know, Terry, if a publisher doesn't like a song, they don't usually erase the master.
No, that's just ego talking now.
Yeah, that's punitive.
Yes, that's punitive.
Okay, depression, comes to me again, and I decided that, okay, I've had enough of this crazy, business, and my great hopes for the publishing deal certainly hadn't materialized, and it was time to get on a plane and go back home to Toronto. So I'm in there's a little apartment that they had for writers that they brought into town, ATV had. So I was packing up, I was getting on a plane the next morning to fly back to Toronto, and I get a phone call from, of all people, the recording engineer on the session. His name was John Reese. And John said, why don't you come over for dinner tonight? I don't know about you, but I've worked with a lot of engineers over the years, and they're wonderful people and couldn't make great records without them, but not that many of them invite you over for dinner after a session, right?
Well, they can't afford it, for one.
They can't afford it, and they probably hate your music anyway, even though they put up with you for 6 months. Anyway, so I go over to his house. He had a little, very lovely little house in the Hollywood Hills, and his girlfriend, who's now his wife, and we're still very good friends after all these years. So he made an amazing dinner. John's from Georgia, and he made this wonderful kind of shrimp gumbo Georgia kind of dish, which for a Canadian kid, it was like, wow. And It was great. And after dinner, we were out on this little balcony overlooking Hollywood, and he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a cassette, and he said, I had to erase Hit Me With Your Best Shot, the demo, because ATV is my biggest client, and you can't let them know that this exists or else they'll fire me. But I made one copy of the demo.
Oh my God.
Before I erased it, and it's on this cassette, and here it is. He handed it to me, and he said, now you cannot play this for anybody, again, because I'll get fired, but just put it away somewhere safe and wait for a while, and you'll know there'll be a time when it's right to bring it out and play it for somebody somewhere down the road. What a wise and wonderful guy. John Reese. Thank you, John.
Thank you, God. Thank you, John.
No, I mean, to have an angel like that come into your life, because so many people have stories where they wouldn't have had somebody like that who would have stuck their neck out for them.
And I mean, that's literally the half point to the story, because what came next?
Well, I went back to Toronto and kept writing, and sort of under this cloud of, now that I'm with this company that seems to hate the songs that I like the best. Maybe 6 months later, the phone rings and I pick it up. A gentleman introduces himself as Marv Goodman, who's just been hired by ATV in New York. They didn't have an office in New York. And he's been hired as a song plugger to pitch songs to artists. And he really likes the songs of mine he's heard, and he wonders if I have any songs he hasn't heard. So I said, well, there is one song that everybody seems to hate in the company, and I have one cassette of it, and I couldn't afford to duplicate it or to make a copy. I just had that one original cassette.
Oh my God.
So I said, let me put it in the mail and send it down to you, which I did. Now, the rest of the story, I wasn't there. So it's what Marv related back to me. He got the cassette. He put it in his machine. Now, he was still working at Chrysalis Records. He was moving from Chrysalis to ATV in a couple of weeks. But while he was still at Chrysalis, he was listening to ATV songs and getting, preparing himself for his new job. Well, Chrysalis had recently signed a young artist by the name of Pat Benatar. So Marv's in his office listening to Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and he likes it, and he's playing it over and over again, and he's turning up the volume every time. And this young artist, Pat Benatar, is having a meeting in the office next door with Jeff Aldrich, who was...
And she's unknown at this point?
Well, she had her first album out, but
it
hadn't done a lot. So,
okay.
But she was sort of starting to get some recognition.
And needed a hit.
So the story that Marv tells me is that was so loud that they heard it through the wall in the office next door. And Benatar said, "What's that?" and stood up and walked into Marv's office and said, "Okay, play me that song." And that's
incredible.
Hit Me With Your Best Shot became what it became.
So they say you can't stop an idea whose time has come to fruition. So it doesn't matter what you throw in its path. The universe has got a plan for everything. So that's an incredible story. I've heard it in pieces over the years, and I'm glad you shared it with us today. And every songwriter should hear that story. There's a lot more in there other than basically, fuck you, I got my song cut. You first of all, well, you have to know Eddie, and he's equally as stubborn as I am. And did you not work on that song to the point where it drove your friends crazy? Like just refining the song?
Yeah, never mind them, it drove me crazy. The thing is, I think, as a writer, it has to be right. Mm-hmm. And at least that's the approach I take.
And whatever that means to you.
Whatever that means, and you don't really know what it, and the craziest part of being a songwriter is very often you don't know what that is until you get there. Mm-hmm. So you walk down a lot of roads and you try a lot of different ideas, and you throw a lot of stuff against the wall. And but Hit Me had a certain that line, just had to be reinforced by the verses. Exactly right. It had to have a certain kind of hipness. It had a certain kind of street vibe, and it really took me forever to write those lyrics. I had the chorus and I had all the music, so I probably spent a year and a half working on the verses. And of course, when you're a year and a half in, now the challenge is to make it sound like it took you as long to write the song as it takes to play it.
Yeah, and is the demo dated now, and all of this stuff to think about. And the best part is that it sounds like you wrote it from the standpoint of an artist, for you, from your experience, from the pillow punching, that kind of thing. So I believe all the greatest songs are written for ourselves. They're just things we need to get off our chest. It's not like, oh, Rascal Flatts is looking for an up-tempo summer theme anthem. Nothing kills the vibe more than that for me.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree. I didn't see myself in those days necessarily as a songwriter. This idea that you're an artist or a songwriter, it really, at the end of the day, the industry imposes these kinds of definitions of what we do. But even as a songwriter, to reinforce what you were saying, the more you think of yourself as the artist, first of all, you have to imagine, well, would I get up in front of people and sing this? Would I be embarrassed to sing it? Would I feel proud to sing it? And I think as a songwriter, you can only achieve that if you own it the way you were talking about, if it's really you as an artist.
Absolutely.
And, I wrote Hit Me, again, put it in the context of my life at the time. I was getting nowhere.
Yeah.
I was absolutely getting nowhere. And Hit Me is about defiance. It's about saying, no, I'm not gonna, knock me down. It's all in vain. Get back up on my feet again.
Yeah.
And that's where I wrote it from. It was a totally honest, expression of somebody who was, for me at that time, in my 20s, not getting anywhere, saying, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to get back up on my feet and keep going.
And why that's so important, that's brilliant. And why that's so important is because I would say that the industry is mostly, especially these days, run by the industry. We're just part of it. Where it should be 5% creators and 95% interpreters. It's like Prince says, let the baker make the bread. Like you should just be yourself and they should market it. Obviously you need some skill, some craft in there, and you've got to put the 10,000 hours in. But I think we've lost a lot of that. And it's important for us to understand that you have to be fearless in what you do and what you say. And I also believe that you need to be fearless in everything that you do. What's the old saying? The way we do anything is the way we do everything. So if, we're obviously paying a price right now for not being accountable and involved in our own business. So if you're being fearless as an artist, but you're not being fearless with your business, are you fearless? That's the way I look at it. So please, I'd like to just move on into Fair Trade Music and your new initiative. You can please tell us all about that.
Well, Fair Trade Music, Terry, is, I think, a very necessary step for us, for those of us who create music, but really for everybody in the music value chain, the record labels, the music publishers, the artists, but I think also for the consumers of music, for people who love music and want to support music. Fair Trade Music started very much along the lines that you were just talking about, because a number of us, and I'll mention some names in a moment, I think who have spent our lives in the music industry and on the creative side, as you have, we're very frustrated with government. We've been going to government. I personally have been going to government in Ottawa. Spent a lot of time going to government here in the United States, Washington, D.C. Also in Europe, as you know, I now travel a fair bit doing advocacy work. So I've lobbied governments, really, all of both of the major governments in North America as well as Europe.
And we thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for all that hard work for us.
You're very welcome. And it's really a frustrating business because you can't really explain what it's like to be a creator to these people. And at the end of the day, politics, there's kind of gridlock, I guess is really the best way to describe it. And as you know, it's not just about copyright or songwriters' rights or artists. I mean, the political situation in many countries, and particularly in the United States, is completely gridlocked. So I think we had a lot of frustration about this idea that we have to go to the government in any country and under any system to get what we feel should be the basic rights under which we want to operate, we want to work, we want to create. And so we started thinking about, well, what's another way to do it? What's a non-governmental way to try to get to a fairer, more ethical, more sustainable music industry? And we started looking around at, various ideas that were out there, various other initiatives that were non-governmental, that didn't rely on changing the law or changing laws or changing regulations. And it didn't take us long to realize that fair trade, especially fair trade coffee, but the whole fair trade agricultural movement, which is now at least 50 years old, it really didn't start.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it actually started, I think, in the early 60s. Didn't really come into its own until the 80s and 90s, and now in some countries where it was started earlier than it was in North America, it's now 50% of the market. So, and still growing. The thing that I think is remarkable about fair trade coffee and other agricultural products is that I don't recall ever seeing an advertising campaign.
No, true.
It was an idea that started with farmers in the developing world. The first time I ever saw it was on a bag of coffee in a grocery store.
Yeah, me too.
And I think, so it's a grassroots movement. What is, I think, so powerful about it is you're standing in the aisle of a supermarket and you're looking at two bags of coffee you could buy as a consumer, and one has a fair trade sticker on it and one doesn't. At that moment where you're about to decide which of these two bags of coffee to buy, fair trade coffee says, here's an ethical choice. If you buy the one with the fair trade sticker on it, you have a reasonable assurance that the farmer who grew this coffee will be properly and fairly compensated for the coffee. And if you buy the coffee that may be basically the same coffee that doesn't have a fair trade sticker on it, you pretty much know that the farmer is going to get screwed.
So if I'm, not to interrupt, but just to clarify for our listeners, if I'm, say, Pandora, and I want to lower the streaming royalties from even what they are now, you're saying that I wouldn't be recognized under the fair trade because I'm sort of going rogue and wanting to see a higher profit margin in my bank account instead of the actual creator of the music. Is that
that's exactly it? And I think we both know that anyone who tells you that there's no money in music anymore, music wants to be free, should know that many of the largest companies in the world, multinational corporations, are making more money from music now than ever before. I mean, music is generating more money now than it ever has before. So really what we're saying is, much like fair trade coffee gave consumers a choice to make an ethical decision, to make the ethical choice at the point of purchase, we would like to certify, and you're right, Pandora may not earn a certification, but there are other streaming services that are trying to do the right thing, that are trying to properly, fairly, transparently, and sustainably compensate music creators. So why not reward the good guys with the fair trade music certification?
Sounds good to me. Now, you've been traveling all over the world and connect. You've got a whole coalition of support and people. You want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, we have about 500,000 music creators around the world now who are supporting fair trade music. It's based, there's an organization in Paris called the International Council of Authors of Music, and they've been very supportive. I'm now a vice president of the organization after being involved for a number of years. And that organization is affiliated with songwriter, composer, and artist organizations around the world, literally in Africa, Latin and South America, Asia, Europe, and North America, of course. So really, it's a global initiative. They've been very supportive, and at a number of meetings in various countries around the world, we now, as I say, have the endorsement of about 500,000 music creators. We're very excited about that. The important, I think, thing to note about fair trade music is, unlike laws and regulations, which are different in every country, fair trade music doesn't get into those kinds of weeds. It just talks about an ethical, sustainable, and transparent business model. So those are universal principles that
keep it simple.
Yeah, and they can apply everywhere. So we have launched our first certified album. We started with independent labels and independent releases, because we're building, so we're starting a little on the smaller side.
Yeah.
Was Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, which came out a few weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. And so it's the first certified fair trade music release. And we're now gearing up to we've had inquiries since that came out from literally all over the world. I've had a streaming service in Berlin, artists in Indonesia, South America, Asia, Japan. So we're getting requests for certification from all over the world, and now we're struggling a little bit to catch up because we don't have the resources in all of those places to certify people. And we have, when I say certify, I mean that we kind of have a list of best practices. If you want to be certified fair trade music, no matter what you are, a streaming service, a record label, just an independent who wants to release your own records, your own music, we have a list of best practices we've developed, which have to do with, as I said before, transparency, sustainability, and fair remuneration for the music creators, that you have to basically say that you're going to live by. You're going to do business according to this list of best practices. It's been a journey. We've been working on this now for about 3 years, but I think a lot of people are responding to it because everybody can understand these simple universal principles.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you, Eddie, so much for doing that. And I appreciate it. We all appreciate your hard work. If you can, I'd like you to speak to the mindset of what the modern songwriter needs to be, what they have to do to survive. We know the last 75 years, or we'll call it 500 years, doesn't work. We don't need any more examples of that it doesn't work. What does the modern songwriter look like?
Well, I hate to quote my mother, but, be a lawyer.
I guess what does a modern songwriter need to become to counter all of this?
Well, I think, in my view, I think it's a very difficult profession because really you have to be a multitude of different things. And, I say jokingly a lawyer, but I think as you know, you really have to know and educate yourself about the business that you're getting into, because once you sign the contracts and you're finding out that you signed away, most of your life's work or some significant portion thereof, it's too late.
It's too late. Absolutely.
So it's very important for you to educate yourself, and there are many organizations in various countries, some of the organizations that are supporting fair trade music. There's the Songwriters Association of Canada, the Screen Composers Guild of Canada. Here in the States, there's the SGA, Songwriters Guild of America, the NSAI. There's a whole list of them. And in fact, the organizations that support fair trade music can help you educate yourself about what you're facing are all, the links to those are on the fairtrademusicinternational.org website. So that might be helpful. So you have to really learn about the business that you're getting into. But I think at the same time, and you said this earlier, you have to write songs that are undeniable. I mean, you have to really work hard at your craft. And I think there's a lot of distractions from that today, and I think a lot of people don't understand how important that is. There are tens of thousands of songs, maybe millions of songs being written every day around the world. And the songs that are going to survive, that are going to put bread on your table and take your career where you want it to go, are going to have to be very, very, very strong. And I think that's an area that people just don't spend enough time on. I mean, we all have, or most of us who write songs now have a lot of toys to play with. We have a lot of computers, we have a lot of great software, great sounds. It's easy to record. And I think there's a tremendous urge to just fire up all the gear and start recording and start playing around with the toys. And, what I've taught myself to do, and I am as distracted by all this stuff as anybody. I love it. I mean, I grew up in a time when to record, you had to have a fortune. You had to have a multinational record label to be able to afford to go into a studio for a couple of days. You were talking about $300, $400, $500 an hour, which is the kind of money that, I didn't have. So now, of course, you can do it, as we all know, on your laptop in your bedroom. And it may sound as, pretty darn good, maybe as good.
Now we have no excuses. I mean, it's there's a saying: don't focus on making it, focus on making it better.
Yes,
that's our job. That's what we have to do. And then once that brilliant song or catalog of songs is established, and you move towards the business of songwriting, this is where I have a slightly different philosophy than the average Joe songwriter, where I believe you're not being fearless if you don't approach the business side of your life in the same manner. There's no part-time effort to me. It's like you're either being fearless and accountable in all elements of your career, or you're not. And to me, it is that black and white. And I'll kind of repeat this through most of the podcast episodes, but I believe that we should be our own CEO. I believe there should be a wedge literally driven between us and Washington, and we control our rights and rates. The rest of the industry and music users then negotiate with us. Somewhere along the way, this got lost. We have no muscle memory, no skills to manage our own business, because we were always lucky enough that another third party always took that burden away from us. We're very fortunate for that. So, getting back to the modern songwriter, my take on it is that you like you said, you've got to be prepared for the business. You don't have to be an entertainment lawyer, but you have to be accountable and understand what your contract means. And you can't come out of high school with a calculus or grade 12 or 13 or even a university degree, but you can't split a song in half. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's that has to change.
Well, it's right now is a very difficult environment for what we do, and it's very hard to see these digital, middlemen, basically these distributors who are building, massive fortunes that may be bigger than they've never been seen in human history before. The Googles and the Apples, the Spotifys, to some extent, Pandora you mentioned, all on the back of people who make music, and we get paid. I mean, people don't understand. They think, for 1 million streams, for example, from Spotify, I get paid about $35 if I'm the only writer on the song.
Unless you own the master, which is where the model works in the favor of the master, because that's why the label signed off on it. Yeah,
well, that artists and labels may own or co-own, or the label owns the master recording. But even yes, and they get many times what we get as songwriters, but even that is paltry. So when you think about the fact that people spend $60, $70 a month for internet access.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying that kind of money for the pipe, right? But what happens if there's nothing in the pipe? So they're paying all that for the pipe and nothing for what the whole point of the pipe, which is to get the content that flows through it. So that's pretty ironic. And it can't go on forever. I mean, that's why Comcast and Bell and all these other multinational companies are buying up content now, because they realize the real value isn't in the pipe. It's in what flows through it. And that's what you and I, to some extent, create. So it's a very difficult time. I think fair trade music is a tool that we can use over the coming years. I don't think it's a quick fix, but let's give consumers the knowledge they need to make the right choices and to use and to enjoy music at sites, websites, or streaming services, or however they acquire music or enjoy music. Let's give them the choice, an educated choice, so they can pick a service that properly compensates the people who actually make the music.
Absolutely, well said. And this will help that muscle memory, that muscle that we don't have, the experience that we don't have managing our own careers. And like I said, we don't have to become a lawyer or a manager. You just need to be better educated on making decisions on who to appoint in those positions, if that's your case. But we actually absolutely have to become more accountable, and fair trade music absolutely helps in that process. I also think it's important to note that we have to monitor how many hands are in our pockets. Half of making money is monitoring who is in your pockets. And if I had $1 for every time somebody had signed away their writer's share or something, that I had no idea what they were doing. University educated #1 writing songwriters that make decisions that just boggle my mind. And they're the only one that gets hurt. In fact, we all get hurt because it sets the bar about at your shins, and it ends up screwing things for all of us. Well, Eddie, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today and telling us all about fair trade music. If you want to get the updates, you can write to Eddie with any of your comments, and I would like Eddie to actually just let us know the website and where folks can get involved.
Yeah, fairtrademusicinternational.org is the website for Fair Trade Music, and there's all kinds of information there and contact information as well.
Again, I want to thank Eddie Schwartz for being on Sold for a Song today. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you back here next week. Be fearless when you create and fearless when you manage your business. Have a great week. If today's episode lit a fire in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Sold for a Song, leave a review, and be the spark that helps others discover their own worth. And if you're ready to go deeper, my upcoming book, The Sold for a Song Academy, and one-on-one mentoring are all waiting for you inside my private portal. Visit TerrenceSawchuk.com. Let's build this movement together.